Okay, so thank you for all joining me. I'd like to introduce Julia Chanteray from the Joy of Business in Brighton. Julia is a business coach. She was also president of the Brighton and Hove Chamber of Commerce and has written a book called Sweetspot Pricing, which is why I've asked her here today to talk to you as the last session in the pricing training course that we're running at the moment. We're going to talk a bit about money mindsets and then pricing, and then we're going to go over to Q&A to you. So thank you for agreeing to come and talk to my group, my All-Stars today, Julia.
I'm really pleased to come and meet everybody. I'm fascinated as to what you're all up to.
So to start off, we want to talk about sort of money mindsets in general. And it's interesting because, my group is mainly women. And I always thought that it was mainly women that had an issue with money, that kind of, I find it so easy, I don't want to charge for it. But in your book, you've got case studies from both men and women. So you're finding that it's actually not just women that have this issue.
Everybody has issues about money. It's one of the deepest emotional things that we deal with. It's something that we're introduced to as children, whether you're spoilt and you have all the sweets that you can possibly have and treats from people, or if you have no money. Men and women have generally different attitudes towards money, and I think that's because men earn more money in general than women do in society. But we're gradually putting that one right and evening it up a little bit. But women are more risk averse generally in business, less likely to go, I'm going to have a massive business and earn £1 million. Men are more likely to do that, but not all men by any means at all. So there are differences there, but I would say that everybody has issues somewhere around money, because it's something that even if you've got millions of pounds in the bank, you still feel like you should have done better. So I do work with often men who have made shed loads of money, more money than they could ever spend. And they're onto, their third, fourth, fifth different business. And they're still marking how good they are in terms of money. And that's a pretty big emotional burden to put on money. And at the other, you've got where women quite often are, particularly women who are just starting on their business journey, either feeling the big confidence issue. Am I worth it? Am I ripping people off? Which is a slightly different issue. So women tend to be fairer in some way. So that thing of, I don't want to rip anyone off, is a big thing for women.
Do you think that it's like a perceived fairness, like their perception, rather than an actual fairness? If you know what I mean.
Fairness, another big emotional thing. So we quite often get upset about things and go, it's not fair. But it's actually relative. There's no kind of international SI unit for fairness. We've all got our different ideas of what fair is. So somebody might see that it's completely fair to go and charge Barclays Bank 500 quid an hour. So if you're a corporate lawyer or a hot trainer in demand, £500 an hour, £1,000 to turn up and do a training session, no problem at all. That's completely fair. And that's one view of fairness, fine. And then there's another view of fairness of, is it fair to charge a small business £30 for doing maybe the same thing? So it's our society that's messed up, and then it puts all this weird stuff in our heads. So we have to be aware that we've picked that up from childhood, from other people around us. The other comparison that I think that people at the start of their business journey make is that we quite often compare what we're charging, especially on an hourly rate, and I know you've done a lot around ditching the hourly rate idea. We compare it with what we earned when we were in a proper job. And I worked out that if you were in a proper job, and then you left it to set up your own business, so maybe you were working and you were earning 24,000 a year, which is a bit less than an average salary in the UK, then you would be getting before tax for every hour that you worked, to do a few sums, £13.90 per hour from your employer, before you have to pay tax on it. And then you take that, what your employer was roughly paying you, and you say, oh, well, I'll charge a little bit more, but £15, that'll be all right, because I used to live on that. But when you work for an employer, you get paid for being off sick, you get paid for going to the loo, you get paid for having a cup of coffee, you get paid for taking your coat off in the morning. When you're working for clients, that's all your time, so you can't bill for every hour in every week, and you definitely don't want to either. So people can quite often misjudge that when they start from that point, because that becomes their anchor point. And I know you've done some work about anchor points in the course, haven't you?
Yeah. What was interesting is when I was looking for your book, when you talked about the was it a woman like selling a rug, making a rug, and it was like if you worked. Was it selling a rug? It was something about if you somebody's say working at like £25, 25k a year, and then they decide they would never spend like £350 on a rug. This sort of case study that you gave. So when they was it a rug?
No, they're quilts.
Quilts. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's because I've got a rug being collected today. That's it. We were discussing that. Yeah, so this person would, they're like, we're earning 25k a year, would never spend £350 on a quilt. So when they leave their job to become a quilt maker and sell them, they charge £100 for the quilt. That example, because that's what they would have paid. And I remember in the bit where you said, that guy in the book, the guy said, well, I'd never pay that. And you went, well, of course you wouldn't. You haven't got any money. That's why you're here talking to me, so that I can help you make some money. And that really resonated with me, because I think I get that a lot in the group, the big group, with people saying, well, I wouldn't pay someone £20 an hour, £30 an hour. And I'm like, no, but you're not your ideal market.
Yeah. And I think we get that from ourselves, because we're not our own target market. We're selling to, when you're a VA, you're selling to businesses. So you're not your businesses, which by definition are bigger than you. So you're not your target market there. And we also get it from the people around us. So I quite often have somebody will say, oh, well, my mum told me that I should charge this, or my son does this. And I'm like, well, no, they are not your target market. Unless they're running a business that is your target market, they are not a good example.
No.
But we get them from people all the time. Say, oh my goodness, you charge that? What, £50 an hour? That's outrageous. And it's really not.
It's really not. And also, when you first start running a business, you've got no idea. You have no concept really of what you should charge, and people just pluck figures out of the air, really. And I love that you covered that in the book as well, about how to actually work out what to charge. I have a pricing calculator as well that I use, and you've also got one. But I like that there is actually a method to get a proper figure rather than just a random magical figure.
Yeah, so we quite often just do sort of seat of the pants pricing and say, right, okay, I sell per hour, so it's, everyone else is selling £25, so that's your kind of set average rate for a VA. So I'll do £25 as well. But maybe you have some skills in a particular area where you can sell for more. Or maybe you spend a bit more time on marketing, get more customers in, so you can charge a bit more. You're always just making it up. So the methodology that I write about in Sweetspot Pricing is to take, very roughly, you decide on how much you want to earn. I often suggest that you do 3 levels of income. Your survival income, what you need to eat and not be homeless. What you need to live a reasonable life and maybe have a holiday and eat, not just baked beans, but maybe some olives and some cheese, nice things. And what you want for your success income. And then you really work out how many hours can I work or do I want to work? And you divide that up. And in the resource pack, I give a spreadsheet that does all of this for you. You just put in the numbers and work it out. And then that gives you a cross-check that says, right, per hour or per day, this is how much I need to charge to get to that level of income. So then you've got some sort of more scientific view of this is what I need to charge. And I've done this with so many people, and they've gone through it and they've instantly said, oh, I changed this because that's why I'm scraping by on my survival income and I can't have those olives and I'm never going to buy a house.
Yeah.
So it then says, right, here is some objective figure about what you need to charge. So it gives you that methodology to start working it out.
And you were saying in the book that people often find that difficult when you say, how much do you want to earn? They're like, oh my God, I don't want to be greedy. And they're very modest. You said that they're never really reaching high enough. They're always going for that lower tier.
Yeah. So when I ask that question, and with my one-to-one clients, it's something that I ask people all the time, how much do you want to earn? And I've been doing this for a while. I've been in business 20 odd years. And I've been around for a while and paid bills for a while. So I know how much I need to earn to pay my bills. And I know what I want to earn so that I can live that good life. So I've got a target really clear in my head, what I need to turn over. But most people don't. They haven't got to that stage yet until I say that. And they go, oh, well, in my corporate job, I was earning 35. So I'd like to match that. I'm like, okay, but this business has potential to do much more than that. And you said before that you'd like to have a baby. So maybe we should earn a bit more and you can put some by for having a year off. Because I understand that babies take quite a lot of work. Or somebody will say, oh, well, I don't want to be greedy. That's quite often when people say, oh, I don't want to be greedy. So then when you look at, right, break it down, not into greedy, but you break it down into objective steps of how much is my rent? How much is my electricity bill? How much do I spend? Even going back over your bank statements is really useful. So I did this. And I was quite shocked at how much I was spending in Waitrose. And thought about that and thought, oh, for the two of us, that's 300 quid a month. That might be a bit much. So that also gave me some cost savings, and then I can go to Aldi instead and you get the same stuff, but it's cheaper. But I didn't affect my income targets. So by saying how much you want to earn in this objective way, and then looking to the future, right, okay, that's where I am now, but in a year's time, I want to go from renting to buying. So I've got to put away 500 quid a month to get my deposit. Mm-hmm. It gives you a clear target then, and you can feed that back into your pricing, rather than saying, oh, I don't want to be greedy. Mm. There's another really interesting thing in there, which is some work on happiness that I've read. And there's a really useful book about how to spend your money to be more happy. And they've researched what makes people happy. And funnily enough, having a fancy car doesn't make you more happy. Well, it does, but for about 6 weeks. And buying a big fancy house actually can make you less happy because your big fancy house is further out of town and then your commute is longer. Or you buy the big fancy house and you max out on your mortgage and then you're stressed about your mortgage, so you're unhappy. And roughly, they've done this calculation that in order to be happy, and this is relative for everyone because everyone wants and needs different things, you need to be earning somewhere around £50,000 in the UK before tax in order to be happy. And that gives you financial security, the opportunity to buy some nice things and to have some good experiences, like going on holiday or going paragliding or whatever it is, experiences that make us happy in life is the other thing from this book. So that 50,000, where I can't get clients to work it out objectively and to do the spreadsheet, I give them that as a kind of guide price and say, right, well, let's try this one on for size and see if we can get to 50.
Excellent.
And that's doable.
What I liked as well with the case studies in the book is that it didn't seem to take much. You know, you've given. Can you hear me echoing back? I can hear my voice echoing back.
It's a little bit echoey, but it's okay. Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, it might just be me. In the book, you know, you give lots and lots of different case studies, which is what I really like, because sometimes you just want to see practical examples. And one of the case studies is of a virtual assistant, which I was obviously very interested. I was like, oh, is that going to be me? And it wasn't me. But Tracy, so I loved that, you know, that what you did with Tracy was that you put a price up by £4 an hour to £29 an hour, which she was initially kind of really loath to do, wasn't she? She was appalled. You did a charging of a minimum charge that the person had to sort of spend 2.5 to get 2.5 hours, and then those quickie taster tasks, and the turnover was up by 20% in the first 2 months, and because of the quickies, inquiries went up by 82% as well in that time. And that was remarkable to me because they were really small changes that you had recommended and implemented. Do you find that with most businesses, it's actually quite small things that they can do? And do you find that people are often sort of loath to make the changes, that they're reluctant, and why?
Well, there's a couple of things there, aren't there? One is that if you start with some little changes and just put your rate up a little bit, or just put your rate up for new clients, if you're a bit nervous about it, that's a good start. And then you start to see a bit of money coming in and you go, oh, that client, he's giving me this much. And the client that I'm charging 15 quid to, that's been with me for 2 years, that I don't even really like, maybe she needs to go and I need more of the £29 an hour ones. So it gives you a little bit of confidence to move on, and it creates that virtuous circle. So you make a little change and then you can make a big change. I quite often say to people, especially if to me they're charging quite low for what they're doing, I will say, oh no, you need to get rid of this lot, they're taking the mickey, and you need to put your prices up and do this, and I'll go for it big time. And then clients will go, oh, really? Oh, I don't want to. I said, well, let's just try it. Let's try it just with the new ones. And then they're like, right, okay, I've sacked them. And that's a great, the old ones, the rip-off ones. And that's a great result. So you start with a little thing. But those little things, if you do 2 or 3 little things, start to have a multiplier. So if you put up your hourly rate, and you get to improve your marketing so that you look like you're worth your hourly rate, which is very much what you're teaching people. You're also getting more clients in. So you've got a higher hourly rate multiplied by more clients.
Yeah. Because also it was, you know, I in the training, the pricing training that you've just mentioned that I've been doing with the All Stars, you know, I talk to them about, you know, if you're cheap, people wonder what's wrong with you. Like anything, you kind of think, well, why are you so cheap? You know, especially if you've just made yourself look like a sort of a premium brand, you know, and then you're not charging much. People expect you to be expensive, or a certain level of people expect you to be expensive. And there was a bit where you said about, where was it? Yeah, if every sales meeting ends in a yes, then you're doing something wrong. and it's probably your pricing. And I loved that. I actually just went like, yes, when I read that in the book. I was like, exactly. And people often, VAs, I think as well, because they come from an admin background, they're kind of people pleasers. They're people that are like, I can do that, I can do this, and they want to make everyone happy, and they often take every bit of work that comes their way, especially when they're new. They don't want to turn anything down. And actually, so two things here. One is that they don't have to take every piece of work that comes their way, because they need to work out how that fits into their own business model about creating and engineering the sort of life that they want to have. I think, about your ideal life. There's an exercise again in the book that you do, and I recognize that because I actually have a Pinterest board of my own called it used to be How I'll Be in 2017, and I rolled it over to How I'll Be in 2018. And actually I looked and I was like, I have most of those things now, and it's sort of like you've said about, I think, about working backwards, where like, how much do you want to earn? What do you want your life to look like? And then create it, rather than, well, I've got these clients and I'm earning this much money. What sort of life can I make from that?
Yeah. So planning forward in that way can be really useful in every aspect of your life, but also thinking about, right, what do I need to earn in order to achieve the other things in my life, because the money itself doesn't mean that much. It's what the money can get for you in terms of security, experiences, a nice place to live, etc., etc. So it's important to plan forward, and it's also important to us as human beings to feel that we're making progress. So if you just stay the same, and I see this all the time. I had a client recently, and she had kept her. She's got clients that stay with her. Once they've bought, they stay with her for years. They've got no reason to leave. And she'd got clients that she'd had for 5 years. She's still charging them the same rates. And she sent me a spreadsheet which very tellingly was called loss-making client.
Sorry, you just froze then, actually. What was it called? The spreadsheet? What was the spreadsheet called?
So the spreadsheet was called loss-making clients.
Oh.
So she'd realised this, and she'd read my book, and she worked out which ones, and they were all people who had been around for a while. So unless you're changing it with clients, renegotiating the relationship with them, maybe offering proactively to do some different types of work for them. So that gives you more billable hours coming in, more projects coming in. And you're developing more skills because you're maybe doing something different, it's more interesting. Those will give you a sense of progress, as well as filling up your bank balance, which we also want.
Yes. And that's something that I talk about in the training, as well as and with my group in general, that it's much easier to get more money out of an existing client than it is to get a new client, because you can, if you know that person's business, you can suggest work that you can do, you can see what their goals and objectives are, what's on their other to-do list, and can help them with those things and make work for yourself as well. Then you don't actually need to go out and get another client. And it's sort of looking past that hourly rate, getting a new clients, and constantly slogging really for every billable hour that you can get out of a day, which is a bad business model, really.
And I think that's really interesting within the virtual assistant market, because quite often a virtual assistant will be quite intimate business, all the ins and outs. You're doing quite intimate tasks for them, so you can be proactive. And I would say, having worked with lots of VAs, where I've used VAs and other freelancers, I'm really surprised that people haven't been more proactive with me, and haven't said to me, "Oh, Julia, can I do that for you?" I noticed that this bit on your website is a complete mess. Can I sort it out for you? And they're quite often things that maybe I know, but I haven't got time to think about it, so I just ignore them. But if somebody says, can I take that problem that is at the back of your mind and go and sort it out for you, and it'll be 200 quid? Yes, please. Just go and take my problem and put it away and sort it out.
Yes.
So you're already in there. You're in that perfect position, being a VA, to do that. So you've got the pull.
Yeah, I've got a little video that I did about the two different types of VAs, and that there's one that just, you give the VA the task, they do it, and they send you the invoice, they're done. And then there's the other one, which is sort of closer, who works more closely, that will find things and help manage and support your business in that way and be more intimate. And it's you get much more money by being the second one, but it also, as well, I suppose, depends on what type of person. I think it's more established virtual assistants that will have that mindset, because they so much to learn when you first start out. They haven't really thought about it, I suppose. It's a bit later. So we're getting up to the half an hour. So I want to talk about, can you tell me about, or can you tell the All-Stars about the Tesco test?
Okay, so this is slightly jokey, but it's also true. And this came from a client, actually, who had looked at her business, come to me, and the business just wasn't doing well. And she was working a lot of hours. She's got 2 young kids, so she was missing them. And she'd been able to keep going because she'd sold a house previously, so she'd got a bit of money in the bank, and her partner was working as well. But it just wasn't doing what she wanted it to do. And we worked out the amount that she'd earned from the business, what her net profit was, and then we divided it by how many hours she would have worked on the business, and it came out at about £6 an hour, which is not good.
No.
And she said, right, we've got to do something about this, because otherwise I've got to pack it in and go and get a job at Tesco's. And at the moment, I'm so stressed, that looks quite appealing, because I wouldn't have any stress. I'd just rock up, put on my horrible uniform for a bit, work at Tesco's, go home, see my kids. She now has completely turned the business around, but she'd reached that rock bottom moment. So the Tesco test is, how much have you made in terms of profit, divided by the number of hours that it took you to run the business as a whole, not just client billing hours. And are you earning more than if you were at Tesco's, which is, I think, £9.45 an hour.
Right.
And if you're not, you need to sort that out. Otherwise, you're going to have to wear that uniform, and it's not flattering.
You might as well go and work at Tesco. That happens in the group occasionally. In not in this group, I would hasten to add, in the handbookers, often, they talk about, I'm only charging this, I'm only doing that, and I go, you could earn more at Tesco. You could actually earn more at Tesco, and it's easier. It's not easy being a freelancer, and it's actually easier to get a job because you get a steady income. You know how much you're going to earn each month. So, so just sort of finishing up this section on sort of general pricing and mindset, what is the biggest piece of advice or takeaway that you would give new virtual assistants before we move on to the All-Stars and their sort of next level pricing questions? What advice and takeaway would you give someone that's just starting out?
So if you're just starting out and you're quite new in your business journey, biggest thing that I would say is nobody knows that you're a newbie. So if I see your website as a potential customer and it looks all lovely, and there's a photo of you and you look lovely, and here's the services and there's no typos and it all looks great, I neither know nor care that you started that 3 weeks ago. There's no way that of me telling, and I'm also not interested. What I'm interested in is you and how you present your skills. So don't assume that just because you're new to this, that should affect your pricing. You should charge according to how much you need to earn and how much your clients are prepared to pay, and that's it. It has nothing to do with how long you've been doing this.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's something again that I talk about in my pricing training. I'm saying it is actually none of your business what your clients can afford. People often say, "Oh, my clients won't be able to, they won't pay that," or "That's a bit too much." And I'm like, I talk about a case study I had with a guy I worked with myself, and I passed him over to someone else, and he was on a retainer, and he said, "I'm really worried because the client's not using all his money every month, etc. And I'm billing him for this." And I said, "How much are you billing him for?" And he said, and I said, "Well, I know this guy personally, and he spends more than that on lunch and on a shirt. It's none of your business to decide how much this client earns or can pay you as well." So sort of hand in hand there. Similarly, thank you. That's wonderful advice. Thank you so much. And then what we'll do now is we'll move over to the second section, which is a Q&A, half an hour Q&A, 25 minutes now with the All-Stars, and we'll talk about next level pricing.